Sarah Mitchell had been looking forward to this evening for weeks. The charity gala at the Grand Harbor Hotel was supposed to be a celebration, a rare night where she could forget about the endless deployments and the constant worry that came with being married to a Navy SEAL. Her husband, Commander Jake Mitchell, had promised he'd be there by 8:30 p.m., fresh from a training exercise that had kept him away for the past month. She stood near the ballroom's edge, her emerald dress catching the chandelier light, checking her phone for what felt like the 100th time. The message still read the same. Running late. Be there soon. Love you. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Sarah decided to freshen up while she waited, weaving through the crowd of uniformed officers and their elegantly dressed partners. The hotel's opulent corridor stretched before her, lined with gold-trimmed mirrors and abstract paintings that probably cost more than her car. She was almost at the restroom when she felt it, a presence too close behind her. Before she could turn, a hand gripped her upper arm, firm and insistent. "We need to talk," a voice hissed in her ear. Her heart lurched as she recognized the voice. It was Marcus Brennan, a former defense contractor who'd been investigated for selling classified information 6 months ago. Jake had been part of the team that gathered evidence against him. Marcus yanked her toward a service restroom tucked away from the main hallway, his fingers digging into her arm. Sarah's training kicked in. Jake had made sure she knew basic self-defense, but Marcus was bigger, and the element of surprise had given him the advantage. The door swung shut behind them with a hollow click that echoed in the small space. "Your husband ruined my life!" Marcus snarled, his face inches from hers, eyes wild with desperation and rage. "They froze my assets, destroyed my reputation. Now he's going to know what it feels like to lose everything." Sarah's mind raced. She needed to stay calm, needed to buy time. "Marcus, whatever you think Jake did, there were others involved. This won't solve anything." But Marcus wasn't listening. He pulled out his phone with his free hand, keeping her pinned against the tiled wall with the other. "I'm going to make him watch," he muttered, fumbling with the device. "I'm going to stream this live, and he's going to see his precious wife and know he can't save her in time." Sarah felt her blood run cold, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. She'd learned from Jake that panic was the enemy, that clear thinking could mean the difference between life and death. She noticed Marcus's grip had loosened slightly as he focused on his phone. If she could just create an opening, maybe she could reach the panic button on her bracelet, a gift from Jake that she'd thought was overly paranoid until this very moment. What Marcus didn't know was that Jake Mitchell had arrived 15 minutes earlier than expected. He'd spotted Sarah from across the ballroom and had been making his way toward her when he saw Marcus approach. Jake's instincts, honed by years of high-stakes operations, had screamed danger. He'd seen the tension in Sarah's shoulders, the way Marcus's hand had grabbed her arm with too much force. Jake had immediately signaled to 2 of his teammates who were at the gala, Lieutenant Dan Cooper and Chief Petty Officer Lisa Chen, and the 3 of them had moved like shadows through the crowd, following at a calculated distance. Jake reached the service restroom door at exactly 9:03 p.m. He pressed his ear against it, his heart pounding but his hands steady. Inside, he could hear Marcus's agitated voice and Sarah's calm responses. Pride surged through him. She was keeping her composure, buying time just like he'd taught her. He glanced at Dan and Lisa, communicating with the silent efficiency that came from countless missions together. Lisa was already on her phone, coordinating with hotel security to lock down the exits without causing a panic. Dan had positioned himself at the corridor's end, ensuring no civilians would wander into a dangerous situation. Jake knew he had to be smart about this. One wrong move and Marcus might hurt Sarah. He needed leverage, needed to get inside Marcus's head. Jake pulled out his phone and called Marcus's number. Inside the restroom, the sudden ringtone made Marcus freeze. He looked at the screen and laughed bitterly. "Your knight in shining armor," he said to Sarah, then answered with a sneer. "Commander Mitchell. Right on time." Jake's voice was steady, controlled, the voice of a man who'd talked down armed insurgents in war zones. "Marcus, I know you're angry. I know you feel like you've lost everything. But hurting Sarah won't change what happened." It'll only make things worse for you. Let's talk about this. Marcus's hand trembled slightly. Talk? You want to talk? You didn't want to talk when you were destroying my company, did you? Sarah watched Marcus carefully, seeing the cracks in his facade. He was desperate, not calculating. That made him unpredictable but also vulnerable. She caught the slight shift in his stance as Jake's words began to penetrate. The evidence was real, Marcus, Jake continued through the phone. You know it was. But right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can end this without anyone getting hurt. You can walk out of there and we can talk about what comes next. Or this can end another way, and I promise you, you don't want that. The conviction in Jake's voice carried the weight of a man who'd made good on promises in the deadliest corners of the world. Marcus's resolve wavered. Sarah could see it in his eyes, the way his grip on her arm loosened another fraction. She spoke softly, her voice steady and almost compassionate. Marcus, I know you're not a violent person. The man Jake described from the investigation was someone who made mistakes, yes, but not someone who hurt people. Don't become that person now. Don't throw away any chance you have at redemption. Her words hung in the air, a lifeline extended in good faith. Marcus looked between the phone and Sarah, his breathing ragged. For a moment, nobody moved. The world narrowed to that small restroom, to the choice one desperate man had to make. Then Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He glanced down and his face went pale. Sarah couldn't see the screen, but she saw his reaction. Pure defeat. You covered every exit, Marcus said flatly into the phone. Your people are everywhere, aren't they? Jake's response was measured. It's over, Marcus. Let her go and come out. Nobody needs to get hurt today. The fight seemed to drain out of Marcus all at once. His hand fell away from Sarah's arm and he stepped back, sliding down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, head in his hands. Sarah immediately moved away, pressing her bracelet's panic button even though help was already right outside. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of relief and unexpected pity. Thank you, she said quietly, for making the right choice. The door opened slowly, and Jake entered with the controlled caution of someone who'd cleared hostile buildings 1,000 times. His eyes found Sarah first, scanning her for injuries, his relief palpable when he saw she was unharmed. Dan followed, moving to secure Marcus, who offered no resistance. Lisa appeared with hotel security and 2 police officers who'd been discreetly called to the scene. As they led Marcus away, he looked back at Sarah one last time. I'm sorry, he said, and she could hear the genuine remorse in his voice. She nodded slightly, acknowledging the apology without absolving him of his actions. When they were alone in the corridor, Jake pulled Sarah into his arms, his usually composed demeanor cracking just enough to show the fear he'd kept carefully contained. When I saw him grab you, he said, his voice rough with emotion, I've faced enemy fire, diffused bombs, jumped out of planes in the middle of the night. But nothing has ever scared me like that moment. Sarah held him tight, feeling the rapid beat of his heart against her cheek. I knew you'd come, she whispered. I knew you'd be watching. They stood there for a long moment. 2 people who'd chosen a life that demanded sacrifice and courage, finding strength in each other. Later, as they finally made their way back to the gala, fashionably late but together, Sarah squeezed Jake's hand. So much for a quiet evening, she said with a small smile. Jake laughed softly, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. With us? Never boring. The ballroom lights welcomed them back, and as they stepped inside, Sarah realized that this was their life. Unpredictable, sometimes dangerous, but always bound by an unbreakable trust and love that could weather any storm.